Hello and welcome. The number of confirmed Omicron variant cases of COVID-19 in India now stands at least 21. It has more than doubled in a day on Sunday. The government has put in COVID-19 guidelines mandated by the central government amidst this concern over this new Omicron variant. Keeping the Omicron COVID variant in view, the Airports Authority of India has shared a detailed set of state-wise guidelines for quarantine norms and regulations to be undertaken by air passengers and flyers. Is that enough to keep us all collectively safe? Is that enough to contain the spread of the new variant of the coronavirus? Or is it a classic situation where policies are many, but its implementation is lacking? Now, according to passengers who have been venting on social media, there's complete chaos. Chaos is reigning at our international airports as passengers line up for COVID tests. Tempers are frayed as delayed results anger travelers. The testing centers blame the huge volume of passengers they have to test. I want to first share a video of a traveler who arrived in India on a flight from Spain yesterday. So take a look at this video. This passenger wants to remain anonymous, and I can understand why, but this is the latest, most updated situation on the ground. What is worrying is that international passengers say the airport is like a hotspot. That is a quote from passengers who we have spoken to. No social distancing at the Delhi airport, as this video shows. Going by his experience, this passenger says it takes approximately 5 hours to get out of the airport. That's 5 hours if you choose to pay the 3,500 rupees for the rapid test. There are long queues for the COVID test first. So there's a long queue for that COVID test, 1 to 2 hours waiting time in line to get the COVID test. After paying 3,500 for the rapid test, that takes around 90 minutes for the report to come in. The normal test costs 500 rupees, but the report could take 6 to 8 hours as per the authorities. There are long queues at immigration too, 1 to 2 hours it takes to clear immigration. So the main concern here for this passenger and others that we have spoken to is that there are no provisions in place at the airport for social distancing. So he's told us, the We the People team, that while everyone is wearing masks, there are lots of children who weren't. And the authorities, according to these passengers, have no idea or had no idea how to enforce crowd control. All of this very worrying, because after this, the passenger says his boarding pass had a stamp that said 7-day home quarantine. But there were no phone calls or follow-ups in the last 24 hours. He, in fact, admitted to us that he went out for a dinner last night. So, and caught in the middle of all of this are students. Indian students who've been studying abroad, Indian students who were scheduled to return home to India for their winter break. One of them is a student, Muskan Manchanda. She flew back from the Netherlands. She landed in Delhi via Moscow. And she joins us. Muskan, you know, in a way you're lucky that you got in, but what was your experience like?
Hi. So my experience was not that bad because I paid a lot for the test, which was 3,500. But I want to add that while I was paying 3,500 for the test here in India, I already paid about 70 euro in Netherlands, which is about 7,000 rupees I paid. So I wasted around 10,000 rupees for nothing because I paid twice the amount of money, you know, for the same reason. And it's not like I'm earning. So I'm a student and I have to pay for the same thing twice. And the second thing I noticed was the social distancing problem. A guy in front of me was sitting there and he was not wearing the mask. And while a person interrupted him and said that you should wear your mask, then he just picked up his water bottle and said that I'm drinking water bottle. I'm drinking water. So that's a concern, you know, for us. We travel like 20 hours to get to India. And with the lack of safety reasons, we can be hurting in the future.
So you're bringing up the point that there's multiple testing that needs to be done. So it's a very cost ineffective. I mean, it's an expensive proposition for anybody who has to travel nowadays. Of course, also there's the worry of this actually affecting you, affecting your health.
Yes, of course it is. It was quite hard because even in Netherlands I paid a lot, and But I am vaccinated. I have 2 vaccines of Pfizer, but
So
nobody
how did you
checked my
take that
Pfizer.
decision to travel? I know you traveled before, this Omicron variant exploded.
Yeah.
But how did you take that? At that point of time, you weren't so concerned.
First of all, my family was very much concerned about me because of the rises of the COVID cases in Netherlands. So they wanted me to come back to India because, of course, it's not safe to stay there because there's no one for me to take care of. So I'm there alone. So they want me to come back home. But even here, I'm facing the crisis when people are not wearing masks, and I'm standing there for in the queue for getting tested. So that's a concern.
And then you may come home and infect your own parents who've been so concerned about you being alone in a foreign country without anyone to help in case you fall sick.
Exactly.
So it's a very trying time, and people are so filled with anxiety. So we have people arriving, those who are arriving in India now really seem to be descending into a new post-Omicron reality, right? And it's a hellish one, going from what we've heard. You have hours spent breathing stale air, planes are sitting on the tarmac, then you're fighting exhaustion, of course, in crammed waiting rooms, waiting swab results in close quarters with fellow travelers who could just, turn out to be infected with this new and possibly more variant, dangerous variant. That's not yet clear yet. We do not know about how dangerous this variant could be. But we have more students joining us today on We the People. This is part of our comprehensive coverage of the COVID-19 situation and its impact on life, business and the economy. So remember, after the emergence of the Omicron variant in Africa last week, the United States, the European Union and other nations banned flights from South Africa immediately. Israel and Japan slammed their doors on the world. Australia and other countries postponed opening up. There's really been a cascading effect all over the world. Australia, let's talk about Australia. So Australia paused plans to reopen its borders to some foreign nationals, basically amidst fears over the new COVID variant. Now, Australia was due to allow vaccinated, skilled migrants and international students entry from the 1st of December, and that has now been put on hold. Grusha Undwar is a student of the University of Melbourne. She now joins us from Australia. Grusha, Australia had until recently had some of the strictest border policies in the world. It was barring even its own people from leaving the country. Many had even called, dubbed this strategy Fortress Australia. Now, the policy has been praised for helping to control COVID, but it's also separated many families. And I'm guessing you haven't been able to return home in a while.
Yes, surely, because I left India to come to Melbourne in 2020 February, and I had no idea that I won't be seeing my family for 2 years. And because of Australia's border restriction, it becomes very uncertain for international students like me to go back and forth without getting infected, and not just bringing the virus to India, but also maybe bringing the virus back to Australia. And with student visas being the least in priority, and even if there is, they might give priority to medicine or STEM courses, that makes it very uncertain for us, leave alone the exuberant prices we have to pay for testing as well as tickets to come back to India. Now, because things were getting better, Australia did plan, but thanks to the Omicron virus, we had to shut the borders again, and a lot of my peers who were planning to come to Australia starting 1st December, they had to postpone and cancel their flights. And with me graduating right now, it's very uncertain for me, and I think it's going to be a long wait to see my family even more.
I'm so sorry to hear this, Grusha. I really think that we've all gotten through this past 2 years because we've had access to family. I can't imagine what it must have been like for students like you studying abroad through this all. And this pandemic really has a wicked sense of humor. No one, it seems, has spared it. Some can't return home like Grusha. Others can't leave India. We have Diya Jyota Datwani. She's a London-based entrepreneur. And Diya, what's your story?
So I actually arrived on the 29th, a day before these more stringent restrictions came into force. And the thing is that coming in didn't feel like I felt a hindrance really getting into the country. But I was called the following day by some people from the Ministry of Health, and they mentioned to me that I needed to get another test within 6 days. Now, I was quite surprised when it came to that conversation because A, those weren't the rules when I arrived. And B, since I'm used to uploading my test results on a government portal, I asked them, I was like, okay, where do I upload my result? And they turned around and said to me that they just call me to find out whether I tested positive or negative. So I feel like it's a bit of a farce. And also the fact that we don't have a playbook when it comes to a new variant. We don't really know how to react. And I don't think that that's something that can be acceptable any longer, because with coronavirus, we knew that there are going to be new variants coming along. Why don't we have a playbook that dictates what passengers, incoming and outgoing passengers, should expect, airlines should expect, and others should expect? Because this isn't something new and unexpected, you know.
So you're saying, things can fall through the cracks, and we cannot afford for that to happen right now. What are your plans in terms of going back now? Because many would actually, when we look at you from the outside, say you were one of the lucky few ones who made it in. There was a very small window, a little sliver of opportunity where things really looked like they were turning around.
Indeed. In fact, I was so excited to be returning at this point. And actually, it's funny because I was one of the last commercial flights to leave India back when the Delta variant was an issue. And at the time, I'd paid another exorbitant price for my ticket just to leave the country. I think it was something like 3,40,000 a head. And now I'm trying to go back to London on the 3rd of January, and my ticket price is somewhere around 3,70,000. So it's like, I need to make a decision. Do I stay here, stay on, and pay a lower price? Because I've been liaising with the airline, and something interesting that I learned was it's not just the demand from students and working professionals who need to travel back and forth. There's a phenomenon of revenge travel, which is like people who've been cooped up for 2 years, desperate to travel because from the 15th on, I believe flights were supposed to open up. Everyone wants to go on vacation, experience the outside world, see more than they've been seeing over the last 2 years. But revenge travel seems to have been affecting people who actually need to travel for essential reasons by pushing up the prices of tickets. And it's become a really tricky situation because it's the laws of supply and demand, really speaking, because airlines have reduced their capacity. They've been one of the hardest hit in this pandemic, and we need to really, pay an homage to the way they've actually been still around trying to support us. But really, I think people need to take a step back and think to themselves, do I really need to travel?
You've raised a very important point. Do I really need to travel? What about those who do need to travel, for whom it's been an emergency? And adding to all of this are our embassies who haven't been issuing visas and passports. So thousands are stuck in limbo, ensnared in a visa issuance system gone awry. Consular services have been working at reduced capacity. I'm going to take the liberty of quoting Rahul Fernandez, who goes by Newspaper Wala on Twitter. He says, I live in the US on a work visa. I am among thousands of Indians unable to see their families because US consulates in India haven't fully functioned through the pandemic. If I leave the US to see my parents, I won't be able to return unless I get a consular appointment. He says he's on a Telegram group with 60,000 strangers, all of whom are trying to find an appointment. And they say that what happens is you get blocked from the website for 3 days if you try logging in more than 4 times a day. Just imagine how cruel that is. You need to get home, you want to get home, but you can't log in more than 3 times a day. There are other online groups where people have discussed, he says, the pain of staying away from loved ones. Some are worried about employment, others fear children missing school. For him, his 80-year-old father's health has been a constant worry, but none of these qualify for emergency appointments. We have Sanam Arora joining us. She's a founder and chairperson of the National Indian Students and Alumni Union in the UK. Sanam, what are the main concerns of Indian students in the UK right now?
Sarah, firstly, great to be on that has multiple women. So congratulations for pulling that together. UK is, we are actually, I would say, one of the better off countries compared to countries like Australia. The British government has done a relatively good job insofar as Indian students and international travelers are concerned. But nevertheless, we've been through a year and a half already where, students have been suffering and haven't, just like other students on the panel have said, they haven't been able to go back home to their loved ones for the best part of a year and a half or 2 years. Flight costs are absolutely exorbitant. And, we were just checking, there's something like a lakh and a half for a one-way flight from either destination to the other country. And I think the biggest issue right now is the lack of clarity on what the rules are. We appreciate it's a fully dynamic situation and it's consistently changing. But in the age of social media, to expect young people to go through pages and pages and tons of information about what they need to do, we should have learned better by now. We need to be releasing to the point, bullet point, specific advisories and guidance on what people need to be doing. And that's something my organization's been doing. But I think the fact that this Omicron variant is now leading to uncertainty about what people are actually going to be facing in a couple of days, in a few weeks' time, is leading to havoc for their travel plans. So, as you know, students like to travel over the festive period. Many of them hadn't traveled for such a long time, were now going to go back. They're now concerned about being stranded in India because should this variant turn out to be, something like Delta, for instance, let's hope it doesn't turn out to be that way, but should they become stranded in India, as many thousands became stranded in both destinations before, here are students' concerns. One, they don't want to be doing online tuition as they've been doing for the best part of a year and a half. They've been paying thousands of pounds, an exorbitant amount. And, people think people studying outside, there's this sentiment that goes around this is luxury travel or it's a luxurious item. It's not, people are studying, they've taken loans, they're on scholarships. People are struggling to make their costs meet. So for those people, they don't want to be doing online studies. And the concern is, if I get stranded in India, if I've traveled, will I be able to come back? Will I be resorting to online study? That concern also exists for those who are currently in the UK. Should the Omicron variant spread in the UK, will universities move to online teaching? Nobody wants that, and that's a major concern. Secondly, concerns are abound that in the first wave of the coronavirus in the UK, students were badly hit because they lost their part-time incomes. A lot of students work in hospitality industries. So should that variant impact considerably in the UK again, students who continue to rely on such part-time income to support their living expenses may be badly hit again. So that's starting to emerge considerably. And I think the fact of people generally being really anxious now. We'd started to feel, especially in the UK, things were so much under control. They still are, credit to all the stakeholders. But there was a sense that we're getting to the end of the pandemic, and now it feels like we're closer to the start of the pandemic, and that anxiety is really spreading. Yeah, so I think
that really does raise anxiety issues, and we've talked so much on We the People about mental health over the past 2 years, and again, stress coming in from all sides. Vimal Kumar Rai is an aviation expert. He joins us now. He's the founder and MD of Trace Consulting Services. Vimal, the aviation industry took a huge hit over the last few years, and just as there was hope of things returning to normal when countries like the US and Australia were beginning to lift their travel bans, which would have allowed couples, families to reunite after 18 months of missed reunions, missed births, weddings, funerals. Bam, we seem to be back where we started. There's really, at the end of it, Vimal, this is an industry you've been working in to promote, but there's not much joy left to flying, certainly not right now, correct?
Absolutely. So I did a post about this recently because I traveled to London and to the Netherlands from where I'm talking to you right now. And it really does feel like we are back, 12 months, right? There's so much uncertainty, and uncertainty is what kills that. Nobody is interested in if they can't figure out how they need to do the journey. And that's what I was saying.
Vimal, give me a chance. Can you just reconnect? I want to come back to you. Meanwhile, let me get in a doctor. We have Dr. Rajinder K. Dhameja. Just reconnect, Vimal, please. I want to listen to what he's saying. We couldn't hear him too clearly. Dr. Dhameja, I just want, we're glad to have you on the show because we've done shows about how safe, whether it's safe or not to fly. But under these circumstances, as many of our students and panelists have pointed out, These are emergencies. They have to travel, and this is the situation they find themselves in our airports. Doctor, what does one need to know if one is flying or needs to fly over the next 2 weeks to keep ourselves and our loved ones safe? Quick tips, please,
Thank you for having me on your show, Sarah. I think we need to understand that the pandemic has a set trajectory. It always comes in bigger cities like Delhi, Mumbai, Bangalore, because of the international travel, and then it spreads from these metropolitan cities to the tier 2 cities and then to the smaller towns. So this trajectory has to be kept in mind, and that's what the policymakers and the government understands and takes actions accordingly as per the situation which evolves, whether it is Omicron or the otherwise. So it is very important to have
if you are at an airport like this, the visuals you're seeing, you can't, there's no option for social distancing because you need to get out. So you need to stand in those queues in order to get your immigration papers stamped. So what does one need to do? Is it basically just wear a mask, not touch your face, not eat, not drink water? What would you advise?
So basically the standard operating procedures have to be there at the airport to manage the crowds and maintain social distancing. But having said that, the WHO had said today that all unavoidable travel should be, not taken. Avoidable travel is only when you have, you have no other option but to travel. The emergency situation, only you can travel.
All right.
And that also when vulnerable
But many
groups,
people don't have that choice, doctor. Okay, I have Vimal Kumar Rai joining us back. Vimal, you got cut off. Go ahead, please.
Hi. So I was actually saying that, it's very troublesome for somebody to be traveling if they don't know what the requirements are. And in my case, just to do, simple travel to London as well as to the Netherlands, I actually had to make a 6x3 Excel grid. And then I had to keep checking that, every couple of days, every time the requirements changed. And I was very lucky because when I flew into London, the requirements were changing the day after that I landed. So I wasn't that badly affected. But for anybody who's actually...
I'm following you on Twitter. Is it true that you flew Singapore to London via Dubai, then Amsterdam, Dubai, back to Singapore, 31 days?
Exactly. I'm still in the middle of that trip.
Okay, so that's what it may take to get from one country to the another here. But I want to ask you, the irony is you said you went to a World Aviation Festival in London. What is this aviation festival about at a time when aviation is, is being killed? As you say, there's no joy in aviation.
So we were all looking forward to things restarting, right? And things don't happen overnight. Aviation, you've got to have a 6-month, 12-month time frame for which to plan your travels. And I can tell you that airlines and airports are investing in trying to make the journey better for us, all of us. That's what the festival was about.
So the irony is everybody, experts like you, were meeting to try and see how to get the aviation industry back on its feet, and then we've been hit again by a new variant. So you had to make an Excel sheet that had requirements demanded. So different airlines will have different requirements, different governments will have different requirements. There are those tests that you have to do. You have to have printouts of all these tests. Now, what would your advice be to anybody who wants to, who needs to travel right now? Please give us some tips.
I have 2 major tips for everyone who wants to travel. Number 1, be very, very prepared. Be prepared to do your research. Don't believe anything that an agent tells you because not everybody is aware. I had even airline staff who were not aware of what the rules were, so I had to do the research myself via the government website. The second example or the second advice that I would give to anyone is buy travel insurance. Buy travel insurance that's going to cover COVID-19, because if you get it when you're overseas, you're going to be in a lot of trouble. There's going to be a lot of out-of-pocket expenses, not to mention all the other hassles. So you really do need to consider insurance before you fly.
All right. So 2 major tips, and I think travel insurance, everyone who can must. I mean, I think one would be crazy to travel right now without that. I want to quickly go across to Jyoti Mayal. Ms. Jyoti, apology, they were completely out of time, but I want to get an idea from you. Just closing words on this. You're the president of the largest nodal travel and tourism association. Your thoughts on being hit by the industry, being hit by this new variant right now?
So thank you for getting me here, and I'll just share quickly because I know you're running out of time. but I think it's very relevant, firstly, that we need to know the right protocols. And that's why I keep telling the government that we need unified policies amongst the states and the country to open borders. Because that's what is the most confusing thing right now is the protocols. And like Vimal said, that we don't know what's really happening. It's changing by the minute, the seconds, if not minute also. So those are the first thing that needs to be marketed very quickly and, disseminated the entire information to the traveler, because that is what is needed. Secondly, what you said, and I've been looking at it, I feel that I've gone back into the time machine to the past. I was exactly here a year back saying the same and talking to students. So I think we haven't learned from our past mistakes. We haven't learned how to handle the challenges. We should have had more staff to looking after this COVID test and seeing the crowds on the airport. And that's where the government needs associations like us to work with them so that there is more information filtered out. There are more better ways of working forward.
Well, I hate to end on that depressing note that we seem to be back to square one and we don't seem to have learned from everything that transpired over the last 3 years. But thank you all for joining us, sharing your experiences, being so candidly with us on We the People tonight. Thank you. Bye-bye.